Hello again. SA here. I wasn't planning to make a video tonight, but something, let's just say, got caught in my crawl, as we used to say in the old days. Sort of like a burrow underneath the saddle, if you're old enough to know what that means. Or if you're owning a horse, and you definitely know what that means. But anyway, there have been people throughout history that tend to just rub people the wrong way. People like George Wallace. Yeah. A known segregationist who, after he got shot in 1972, let's just say he had an attitude adjustment and saw the light. Johnny Cash. Yeah. Great singer. A lot of great tunes. But let's just say the way he treated his first wife and his family, as well as, let's just say, he had a tendency to use too many recreational drugs. He had a tendency to rub people the wrong way. And Andrew Tate. Oh yeah, anyone who's familiar with internet personalities all know who Andrew Tate is. Yeah, he rubs people wrong a lot. And yet, the guy, he has a tendency to tell the truth. And he does it in a very blunt way, and doesn't care whose feelings he hurts. And then there is Donald John Trump. Talk about reaping the whirlwind. Now, anyone who is as old as I am knows who Trump is. Indeed, the first time I ever heard Trump was back in the 80s. And I heard him as a real estate guy, businessman. And yet, anyone who's familiar with Doonesbury, Gary Trudeau, he had no use for Trump at all. Always basically made him out to be a buffoon, a joke, basically a used car salesman. And I would concede, in the type of business Trump's in, or was in, yeah, you could probably accuse him of being a used car salesman. I mean, because what does used car salesman do? He would do anything to get you to buy that car. Even though the car might have four-ball tires, engine that tends to belch black smoke, and you probably can't get the car into from third to fourth gear without a serious effort. But yeah, and yet, despite that history, Donald John Trump reaped the whirlwind when he came down his golden escalator at Trump Tower back in 2015 and declared that he was running for president of the United States. Indeed, I remember PBS NewsHour, they made the joke that Trump was a joke, and that he was doing it for publicity for his TV show The Apprentice, and that a lot of them referred to that period in 2015 as the summer of Trump, and that by the time the primaries got started, that he would fade away and go back to Trump Tower. Except he didn't. He went up against some of the smoothest operators inside the RNC. Ted Cruz, Rubio, oh my God, the legacy of the Bushes, remember Jeb Bush? And he defeated them. Got the nomination. And the news media and the people in the mass media uh, they didn't take him seriously. Indeed, there's an old video where someone's talking to Tom Hanks. Hey, I like Tom Hanks. Yeah. I used to watch him in that old TV show Booze and Buddies, which most people probably don't remember what the hell I'm talking about, but hey, you can look it up at IMDb. It's an okay show. Or Splash or whatever. Or that later film, Philadelphia, where he actually won the Academy Award. Good film. Yeah, good film. Very good film. You should watch that sometime. But then he sat there on the red carpet and he said publicly that the only way that Trump would only win when pigs would fly. Well, pigs don't fly unless, of course, they're been transformed to a pork chop and they're in the first class compartment of some United airliner flying from Atlanta to New York. But yeah, and despite all that venom and vitriol, Trump won the election. And then everything truly hit the fan. Now, I'm not going to dredge up all the nonsense and tomfoolery that occurred afterwards. Russia collusion, bounties on American soldiers in Afghanistan, Putin puppeteer, and all that nonsense. Nope. This video is not about Trump. This video is about Trump's opponents. Everyone from the people in the deep state, you know, the security apparatus, CIA, DIA, NSA, all these people who were going on and on about how they felt that Trump was somehow a spy for the Soviets back in the 1980s and was, oh my God, that Vladimir Putin was one of his handlers. I mean, really? Or Hillary Clinton, oh, the wicked witch of the South, sitting there referring to Trump as a fascist. Really? And his voters as deplorables. Really? And how even now, after all these years, still butthurt over losing an election that I guess she thought was just a procedure for her to becoming Queen of the May. Talking about how Trump supporters need to be deprogrammed, like they're members of the Branch Davidians or the damn People's Temple. Yeah, right. Nope, this video is not about Donald John Trump. It's about his opponents and how they have become more deranged, more psychotic, and so incredibly desperate. This video is about them. Now I'm going to read you something. Now, of course, most people nowadays, they tend to do their reading on the back of a cereal box. Me, I'm probably one of the last people on this green earth that reads. That's right, Los Angeles Times. My family's been reading this newspaper since Nixon. And you say, wow, that's a long time. Yeah, what can you say? When people get caught in their ways, they get caught in their ways. Now, listen to this. You're going to love this. You ready? Okay. Trump's ugly vermin speech dishonors U.S. military veterans. Before I get any further, though, I have to tell you something. Do you find that internet porn and OnlyFans isn't what it's cracked up to be after all? Do you feel that the whole world has gone crazy and you just want it to go away and leave you alone and you have no way of making it happen? Well, guess what? I got a deal for you. Hello there, SA here. And when I'm not making a fool of myself saying what I really think on a computer, I'm also a published author, and I got a deal for you. Glitch, a precarious duo, and Glitch, the future is unwritten. And right now, they're both on sale for 99 cents. That's right, no bullshit. And the sale is good through Black Friday. That way, if you're too bloated with turkey, it's okay. You can wait an extra day to blow your money. Now, I'll give you the quick elevator pitch. That way I won't bore you with the details. Sandra is a 15-year-old fashion model with a lot of problems. And Ike, he's a Gulf War veteran who is the last man standing after a deadly jewel heist. But the two of them, through a quirky set of circumstances, end up on a journey across the Southwest while John Law is pursuing both of them. Now, I'm not some one-hit wonder. I got other books coming down the pike. So, if something mysterious doesn't fall out of the sky on my head, you'll be seeing those books too. Now, let's get back to the video. Okay, now we got that little business out of the way. Let's proceed. Former president uses Nazi-like language to file a day dedicated to American veterans. It is a full-time job to carry out every one of Donald Trump's lies and efforts to divide this nation, but his vermin address on Saturday deserves special attention. The ex-president and leading Republican candidate for the 2024 dishonored American veterans and further tainted his political party with a hate-filled Veterans Day speech featuring words that would have been at home in Nazi Germany. He promised to root out his opponents, supposedly on behalf of veterans who fought to protect liberty. In honoring, they're quoting Trump allegedly. In honoring our great veterans on Veterans Day, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections and will do anything possible. They'll do anything, legal or illegal, to destroy America, to destroy the American dream, he said to a cheering crowd in Claremont, New Hampshire, after having posted essentially the same thing on Truth Social, his personal Twitter clone. His words are repugnant for their historical connection to acts of racism, slaughter, and populist dictatorships. The word vermin describes harmful rodents and insects. When turned on human beings, it implies the same response: extermination. In response to criticism that Trump was calling violence against his enemies, his campaign doubled down. Spokesman Stephen Chung, I hope I'm pronouncing his name, told the Washington Post that those who try to make that ridiculous assertion are clearly snowflakes grasping for anything because they are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, and their entire existence will be crushed when President Trump returns to the White House. Trump has taken over the party of Lincoln, who in the closing weeks of the Civil War called for malice towards none and charity for all, and who urged that Americans worked to bind up the nation's wounds. Trump now leads the party to Dwight D. Eisenhower, who led the U.S. soldiers in the epic struggle to throw out Nazi fascism, and others who branded people as vermin for opposing them. Years after World War II, after 2 terms as president, and after a witch hunt in which Senator Joseph McCarthy promised to root out communists in the army and the federal government, Eisenhower spoke to his fellow Republicans at the 1964 convention. Now, of course, anyone who knows history knows that the people at the New York, Los Angeles Times omitted the part that McCarthy was actually a Democrat, and they omitted that. But they assumed you're stupid. That's why they didn't clarify that. They're trying to make the assumption that McCarthy was a Republican when he clearly wasn't. But let's read. Quoting Eisenhower, "I believe with all my heart that the kind of party ours must be is one that rejects as unfit and wholesome all who are the purveyors of hate and intolerance, who are prone to use violence, who malign character of fellow Americans, and who baselessly charge decent Americans with reasonable acts, with treasonable acts or intentions," he said. "How can Americans," now this is the newspaper talking again, "how can Americans, Republicans particularly, recognize Trump as a successor to their great leaders of the past? There is increasingly more than a resemblance to other leaders of other countries who, like him, hammered hate, grievance, and self-obsession into the opposite of liberty, justice, democracy, and those dictators were ultimately defeated only at the cost of hundreds of thousands of American lives." Okay. Now, this editorial from Los Angeles Times is probably, to use a Biden term, one of the most dishonest piece of malarkey that anyone who's been paying attention for like the last 5 to 10 years can possibly read. Anyone who was around and paying attention when Trump was president the first time knows that Trump, he may be a lot of things. He may be a used car salesman, but he is no Juan Perón. He is no Benito Mussolini. He is no Tojo. He's definitely no Adolf Hitler. No. So why do they keep doing this? Well, in the words of Trump spokesman, Mr. Chung, these people have TDS. Or as Tim Pool, I know, I keep quoting the guy, but I like him. These people are basically radical leftists, and they project upon their political opponents what they themselves are doing. Because anyone who's remembered the so-called Summer of Love back in 2020, when BLM and Antifa were running around the countryside trying to burn everything down, pulling down all those statues, attacking the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon, trying to burn it down. I mean, what was it, like almost like 2 solid months of sustained attacks with fire bombs and explosives? Did you see Trump supporters doing that, tearing down statues? Did you see Trump supporters attacking a federal courthouse with firebombs and explosives? I didn't. And now, of course, the radical left will say, oh, what about January 6th? Yeah, what about January 6th? How many people died in January 6th? One person. And that was Ashley Babbitt, a protester. And no, she wasn't carrying no bombs. She wasn't carrying no Molotovs. Nope. That Air Force veteran, she was just carrying her skinny little 5'2", 98-pound soaking wet body trying to enter a window when a Capitol police officer who was obviously scared out of his mind shot her in the neck at point blank range with his police issued Glock sidearm. That's the only person who died January 6th. And yet, Joe Biden and his leftist allies, we're talking about you, CNN, MSNBC, tried to parlay what happened January 6th to make it worse than 9/11, to make it worse than the Pearl Harbor attacks in which damn near 3,000 people died and involved an international terrorist group and a hostile world power. Well, anyway, this video is about all those people who have been screaming loudly for going on 8 years now that Trump is a fascist, Trump is a dictator, Trump is Beelzebub in a $2,000 suit. He's not. Because if Trump truly was a dictator, he could have easily did what a real dictator would have done. He could have shut down the news media. He could have suspended habeas corpus. He could have suspended the Constitution. He could have sent out the army to shoot to kill orders to those Antifa clowns when they attacked that federal courthouse, and then round up what was left and take them to a local landfill and bury them alive. Then you could call him a dictator. But did Trump do any of those things? No. Didn't do those things at all. Even when Antifa and BLM showed up at the White House in July 2020 and attempted to breach the White House grounds with the intention of putting their hands on the 45th President of the United States and dragging him out by his ear, did Trump order the army to shut down Washington, D.C. and sent the federal law enforcement to round up every last stinking one of those people wherever they hid and drag them by their ears to Leavenworth or Florence, Colorado, the Supermax prison? No. Now, in the meantime, Joe Biden, the 46th President of the United States, is currently doing just that. Right now, as we speak, federal law enforcement is hunting for a member of the public who just happened to have been at January 6th. Did he kill anybody? No. Did he throw any bombs at the damn Capitol Hill? No. Was he working for a hostile world power or a foreign terrorist group? No. Was his crime? He opposed Joe Biden. That was his crime. And for that, right now, federal law enforcement is hunting him down like, are you ready? Like vermin. And in the meantime, and you can look this up because it was on 60 Minutes, a federal prosecutor working for the Justice Department he was doing an interview with Scott Pelley at 60 Minutes, and Scott Pelley asked him about January 6th. This was like earlier this year, and about how they had arrested well over, I think it was 1,000 people, and how many of them were currently sitting in the D.C. gulag. My words, not his. And then Pelley asked the guy, "What about all the other people?" And this guy, with a smile on his face, gleefully said, "Oh, we're hunting the rest of them now." And then he said, "Why?" He said, "We wanted to make sure everyone in this country knows that you cannot do that, and we're going to make sure that we're going to make an example of these people. That way, no one ever dare thinks about doing something like that again." Now, of course, you could probably say, yeah, well, these people did stage a riot at Capitol Hill, and they should be punished. Okay, I'll concede that. I mean, if you were rioting and you're fighting with cops, I guess you deserve a night in jail. Except that's not what's happening. Man, these people are being persecuted. Man, these people who were rounded up haven't even seen inside of a courtroom yet. Haven't had their court-appointed attorney. Probably haven't had their one phone call. And a few of them actually complained that they've been beaten up in jail by the guards. So then you now tell me, who's the dictator again? Who's behaving like a fascist? Yeah, right. Anyone from the outside looking in can easily tell that what's going on here is that you have a bunch of radical leftists, as well as DNC shills, like Pelosi, Nadler, Shifty Ship, all those good people. And finally, the security state, the people who were lying about Trump being a Russian spy all those years before. These people are scared out of their minds. Why? Because back when I was a little kid, when we would do wrong and our mother would find out, we would run and hide too, because we know we were going to get punished for being naughty, for being bad little boys and girls. And when you look at Trump's opponents and how they have been lying and cheating and stealing for 8 long years to keep this man from the White House, and then once he got in there, lie, cheat, and steal some more to get him out of the White House, well, you would figure that, oh my God, this guy's going to punish us for doing what we did to him. It's fair. That's human nature. And yet, more and more people whose minds are right, they can see what's happening. I mean, anyone who's been paying attention recently to these crazy court cases against Trump, where he's being sued in federal court over the documents statute, that he's being sued in a federal court in D.C. over January 6th riot, trying to claim that it was an organized event. Organized by who? Not by Trump. Now, of course, some of you people probably saw that kangaroo court hearing that the DNC arranged a couple of years ago. Thing is, all those people were lying. Like that crazy woman used to work for Trump said that Trump tried to GTA 5 himself and hijack the beast to go to the damn Capitol Hill around the time the riots was happening. That's bullshit. In fact, you can look and check. The Secret Service detail was willing to testify that just didn't happen. Did those people, like the Cheney's daughter, did they request those Secret Service agents to come testify? No. Why not? Because they knew the Secret Service agents would basically go against the narrative. That's why. and those clowns over there at the damn the 3%ers, that militia group. And they charge all them all kinds of sedition and everything else in the phone book, and then drag them up there, and they hemmed and hawed, tried to insinuate that Trump had planned some kind of overthrow of the government. Of course, there was nothing to it, because they couldn't even produce one phone call where they could produce anyone from Trump's circle calling any of them, arranging anything. And just recently on CNN, that woman that was part of the lawsuits after the 2020 election, I can't remember her name now, and how supposedly she settled out of court down there in Georgia, because she was being sued under RICO statute for attempting to cheat in the 2020 election. I mean, like, really? All because they were asking questions about the vote count. And these people at CNN said, oh, now that she allegedly flipped to basically take a plea deal, she might testify against Trump as to a meeting she had with Trump right after the 2020 election in the White House, where she, Steve Bannon, and a handful of other people were sitting around there talking. And they were, now remember, these people at CNN are a bunch of radical leftists, okay? And they were insinuating that somehow she knew some stark secret, that somehow at this sit-down meeting they supposedly arranged January 6th, which is just rubbish. But then who knows? People have been known to perjure themselves to get out of trouble, or to get something. Because, for example, are you familiar with A Man for All Seasons? It's a great stage play and a better film. In the story, it was about Sir Thomas More, and how Sir Thomas More was accused of treason against King Henry by the Duke of Buckingham. Why? The Duke of Buckingham wanted his job because he became Chancellor of England. So what happened? During the trial, there was no evidence that Sir Thomas More had committed any kind of treason. But then Buckingham got an old pupil of More's, Richard Rich, to basically perjure himself, to claim that Sir Thomas More, confessed to him that he did indeed basically was disloyal to the king and therefore had committed treason. And in the stage play and in the film, when Richard Rich perjured himself, Sir Thomas More asked Richard Rich what was the medallion he was wearing, with a dragon. And Richard Rich said, I was made Attorney General of Wales. And at that point, he knew that his pupil had been paid off in order to perjure himself against Sir Thomas More. And after that, Sir Thomas More knew that his life was a forfeit. And of course, as we know in the stage play and the film, Sir Thomas More got his head chopped off. And we also know in both the stage play and in true history that Richard Rich, who perjured himself in order to send his old schoolmaster to the gallows, later became Chancellor of England himself. So there you go. But anyway, Trump's opponents, they are the problem, not Trump. The fact that they are using every dirty trick in the phone book, lies, cheats, lawfare, ridiculous lawsuits, all sorts of terrible things like this in the newspaper, it shows that these people are hysterical, out of their minds. Everything they try to get rid of Trump isn't working. Now, Tim, the guy like Tim Pool, he said the reason why they're doing this is because despite of years of being corrupt and cruel, that people had just had enough. And that Trump has become ordinary people's avatar of their basically anger and upset over the way these people, whether they be in the news media or in the body politic, have basically misused and abused the people of this country through their corruption, through their the way they've totally misused and abused the economy, how they've gone overseas and started all kinds of overseas wars. I mean, good grief, even though Duran got calm, those two Greek brothers recently came out with a report saying that the Ukraine war didn't have to happen. That these people, these neocons inside the U.S. government, wanted it to happen, and they arranged to have it happen. Why? Because they somehow wanted to get rid of the Russian government, and they decided to use Ukraine as a proxy. And how the Russians, on the other hand, they didn't really want to invade Ukraine. They just wanted to force Ukraine to basically not join NATO, to not join the EU. And they were more than willing to have a piece of paper to say that. Because after the 2014 coup, anyone who was paying attention knows that the people in Kiev were leaning towards the political West, and Moscow didn't like that. And, wait for it, according to the Rand.com brothers, Moscow and Kiev had a coup, had a piece of paper that would end the fighting, and that Kiev would stay a neutral country, not in any alliance with Moscow, and no military alliance with the West, be like Switzerland. And these neocons in our country said no. And they sent Boris Johnson, sloppy Boris, out there to convince the people in Kiev to tear up the paper and get the war going. And there you go. Yeah, it's stuff like that people in this country hate about the deep state and these political operators inside the DC Beltway. And after all this misbehavior, misdirection, lying, cheating, and stealing, they are getting upset over what? Trump saying that he wants to root out these vermin who have been ruining the country? And they're trying to insinuate that he was somehow putting a racial component? Really? Well, the last time I checked, communists and left-wing radicals and DNC Shields is not a racial group. No, it isn't. So what happens now? Well, according to smart people, this lawfare against Trump probably not going to work. Indeed, Dr. Turley, the constitutional scholar, he said more than once publicly that most of these lawsuits against Trump are nonsense. I mean, like Alvin Bragg, his lawsuit, he said that thing shouldn't have been filed in the first place, and if they actually go to trial, it'll just be overthrown on appeal. And the trial that they have Trump on right now about him committing fraud, they said that that trial is nonsense, and any judgment against him on that trial will likely be overturned on appeal. So what's it all for? It's all about keeping Trump out of the White House. Why? Because these people are afraid that they're going to be punished. for their misbehavior. And they are afraid that, unlike, say, a President Nikki Haley or a President Ron DeSantis, Trump will punish them. That he will basically drag these people out by their ear and spank their little heinies for being naughty. And you know what? Anyone who's been paying attention to what's been going on in this country in the last 8 years knows that these people deserve it. So, yeah, Donald John Trump is not the problem. It's these radical leftists, these Marxists, these fools, these shills who work for good publications like the Los Angeles Times. They're the problem. And Trump, he's the solution. Well, that's all I have to say on there. And that's my opinion.